Post from lexerro. What's the scariest situation you've been in? Comment from CrayRaysVaycay. I was about 11 years old and off school sick with the flu. My mom worked in the little shop literally 5 minutes away from our house, so she left me alone that morning to do her shift, and I was just chilling on the couch watching television. I heard the front door open and assumed it was my mom home early. It was a random man who was heavily intoxicated. He went straight to the coffee table and lifted up my bottle of cough medicine and downed the entire lot. I ran and hid in the bathroom and cried. There was no mobile phones back then or anything. After a while I had to run out in my pajamas, really sick, and run along to my mom's work. The police turned up and found the guy asleep on our couch. Comment from Redshirt 2386. When I was 11, the house across the street from me caught fire. It was a fast-moving electrical fire. The boy who lived there was 14 and he had a 9-year-old sister. All of our parents worked full-time, so we were latchkey kids. This was the early 1990s. Anyway, the boy came hauling ass down the street screaming for any adult to come out and help, because his house was on fire and he thought his little sister was in there. I was the only one who heard him, so I grabbed his hand and ran into my house and called 911. He wanted to run into the burning house to find his sister, and I knew he would die if he did. I was a scrawny, spindly little girl, 5 feet 6 inches and maybe 75 pounds. And he played defense on the football team at 5 feet 8 inches and probably 150 to 170. He was panicking and sobbing and thrashing around, but somehow I found the strength to physically hold him back until my little sister could run down the street to find an actual adult. I guess it was adrenaline or something. All I knew was that the only thing standing between that kid and a horrible death was me. The good news is that his sister wasn't in the house after all. She'd gone to a friend's house without telling him. But for about 15 minutes, we were sure she was in there burning, and I had to stop him from burning with her. I've been in other scary situations since then, but because of how young we were, that one stands out. Comment from Crimson Eagle 1. When I was hiking in the Tetons, I got ran down by a grizzly bear. A friend and I were hiking in early September in a wooded area. Off the trail we could hear a bear grunting. We were aware and pulled our bear mace and kept hiking. Not being able to see where the bear was in the woods, we continued on the trail. The grunting stopped, but before I knew it I was thrown on the ground. A great weight was just crushing me and started throwing me around like a rag doll. It began to tear into my hiking pack. I stayed on my stomach as best I could and tried to cover my vitals. Next thing I know is that my eyes and nose start burning. My friend started to spray his bear mace to get the bear off me. I'm still not sure how I did it, but I managed to unbuckle from my pack, get out of it, and crawl away from the bear. The bear continued to tear into my pack. Before my friend's bear spray finally got to it, it turned and ran off. We left the area quickly and waited till the bear spray wore off and hiked out. We got to a ranger's station, where I was taken to a hospital to be treated. My friend and a ranger went back to the attack site to recover what was left of my things. Luckily I escaped with minor injuries and minor scarring, a few broken bones and deep gouges. My stuff sadly didn't make it out all right. Favorite coat and pack ruined. But that is definitely the scariest situation I've ever been in. Comment from GetaDuck11. Overhearing my dad and his friend planning out the murder of my mother, sister and me. I had just turned 17. Back in 1986. He was going to burn the house down while we slept that night. He worked midnights. I wasn't supposed to be home. When I heard him going through the house getting whatever items he wanted to save from the fire and talking about the plan, I hid in the crawl space between our family room and hall closet. He left to take a load to hide at his friend's house. I ran to call someone. Anyone. Small town of 500 and only one sheriff who was his friend, but he had cut the phone lines. Thankfully my mom and sister came home before he got back from his friend's house. My sister and I had to plead with our mom to leave, but she did. He abused her for 25 years. Now she's almost 80 and takes tap and jazz lessons, yoga classes, goes on all kinds of trips with her fellow seniors. She's awesome. Comment from Deleted. I'm late, but here goes. When I was 13 I was spending the summer with my dad and his girlfriend. I have 2 brothers, age 11 and 10, that were also there. My dad got into an argument one night while drunk, nothing out of the ordinary. and he decided he was going to drive us about 30 miles back to our mom's house. He loads us all up in his 85 feet Camaro and gets ready to take off when his best friend, Jesse, jumps in the passenger seat. Jesse was a small guy, and he knew that if he tried to talk my dad out of drunk driving, the only result would be my dad trying to beat him up. So he just got in the car to try to mitigate any potential damage. We made it onto the interstate and about 10 miles down the road before my dad started nodding off. We were coming up on an exit, and there was a divider for the exit and the interstate. My dad finally passed out right then, and we were heading straight for the divider going about 75 miles per hour. Jesse, at the last moment, turned the steering wheel and was able to get his leg into the brake to stop us on the side of the highway. He pushed my dad over to the passenger side and drove us home with my direction. Even at 13, I was fully aware of my own mortality at the moment, and I was sure that I was going to die. Jesse, may he rest in peace, saved me and my 2 brothers that night, and I can never thank him enough. Edit. People have asked, so I decided to make the edit. Jesse was mugged and had his hand slashed open as a result. He went to the doctor for a couple of months for therapy. In the process, and I don't know how, but the doctors noticed that there was something else wrong. They did tests and found out he had cancer. Stage 4. He passed away a little over 4 years ago. While I'm at it, I just want to say thank you for all the concern. I wouldn't have made it to 25 years old if it weren't for Jesse and people like him. I never told him thank you for that, and I wish I had. So, if you never thanked someone for something, do it now. It would take 10 minutes. Comment from ThaloGreen. Locked inside a Gap store all night when I was a teenager. I had to use the bathroom and the store was getting ready to close, so I rushed in real quick. I made a mess in the bathroom, so I took way longer than expected. When I got out, everyone was gone. I freaked out and tried many ways to get out. This was before cell phones, so when I tried using the store phone, it required a passcode. I slept on the floor and woke up at 7 a.m. and waited, hid in the bathroom for the store to open. 20 minutes after the store opened, I casually walked out and no one saw me. I got home and my mom was cooking French toast. I told her I decided to sleep at a friend's house because we stayed up late watching a movie. My mom was cool, so it was nothing. I just needed more of an excuse to not look awkward walking in the house at 8:30 a.m. in the summer. Had my French toast and fell asleep for another 2 hours. It turned out good in the end. Comment from heruzobah. Was in Iraq on my last deployment and was conducting a foot patrol. As I pass a side street, the tailgate of a truck drops and there are 2 insurgents laying there with a machine gun who immediately open fire. The whole world slows down and seems to do one of those freaking Matrix things where you can see the bullets as I scream for everyone to take cover and run for cover myself. I felt my body jerk and yank around and almost fall off my feet several times until getting behind a building for cover. I just knew I was dead and could not feel the wounds because of the massive damage. Checking over my body, a canteen had been blown apart. A round had passed through a magazine pouch, destroying 3 magazines of ammo. I had 2 impacts that ripped up the cover of my helmet without punching through, and 1 round had passed through my uniform, across my chest, tearing at the inside of my body armor without touching me. 13 points of impact in all and not a scratch on me. We later joked that death must have been on vacation. Comment from deleted. Comment from BeezusTheRed. When my husband died suddenly in our kitchen. He'd been having panic attacks, and this event began with another of those. Only he couldn't calm down. His heart was beating so hard, and so quickly that I could feel it. His face paled to a sickly color, mouth going white with a rim of blue-purple at the edges. He gasped, and said, "Help me. Please help." It all happened so quickly. I still thought it was just a severe panic attack, and we were waiting for the ambulance. He stopped breathing. Shit got real. My blood felt like ice as I shook him, and I shouted for help, getting Harry out of his chair to lie him down flat for CPR. I did chest compressions frantically and puffed air into him. The air just kept coming back out. It made groaning noises as it did so. I knew my attempts were not working. The ambulance arrived, and I was shooed away. As they worked, my husband's heart was restarted 2 times, but he officially expired at 5:02 a.m. Scariest, guiltiest, most horrible thing I have ever experienced or seen. Ever. Bar none. Comment from mysevenyearitch. I was in Brazil and traveling by bus into Argentina. Arriving at the border, I realized that I didn't have the proper documents to get across. So I bribed the bus driver to hide me in the cargo hold and smuggle me over the border. That was a scary few minutes. Definitely brown pants time. Comment from Sakomator. One time I had sleep paralysis and there was a huge goose right next to me. It was like 2 meters big and it just watched me while I tried to scream at the top of my lungs. Comment from Sporkeydorkiedoo. This happened 40 years ago but still sticks with me. A buddy and I are doing a long-distance hike in northern Maine. We are in the middle of nowhere. One time, it was just starting to get dark. We're hanging by a fire, when all of a sudden we hear something big crashing through the brush about 100 yards away. We look at each other and both go to look what made that ungodly noise. It didn't take long. He was about 10 yards into the brush, a huge moose, with an arrow sticking out of his side. Holy shit. What do we do? The poor thing had gotten itself all tangled up. We go back to our campsite. I grab my bush saw and my first aid kit. We go back. It took me 6 hours to clear all the brush away. It's 2 a.m. now. I put on my headlamp, grab my first aid kit, and go check the moose. I'm no vet but the arrow did seem to hit somewhere that had him bleeding pretty bad. I couldn't believe how fucking big this animal was. He was huge. He kept lifting his head up, looking straight at me. I kept talking to him. He'd flick his ears. As he went to lay his head down, I grabbed the arrow and pull it out. I took 4 cotton balls I had and jammed them deep into the hole. I had slathered half a tube of wound care in the cotton balls. He kinda freaked but eventually calmed down. We covered him with a sleeping bag. We kept giving him water with a sponge. He loved it. My buddy had a family and had to leave. I decide to stay with the moose. 3 days pass. The moose is coming around. One morning I am jolted awake by something coming at me through the brush. I roll over. All sleep stupid and come face to face with the biggest moose I have ever seen, whose attention was focused directly on me. Suddenly, the moose I was caring for gets to his feet, and lets out the high-pitched blat. Turns around, and starts nuzzling the aggressive moose. Basically, my life is flashing before my eyes. This moose is going to stomp me. Only one person knows where I am. I'm kinda fucked. Then, as quick as it started, the 2 moose turned and crashed away, never to be heard from again. I raised my arms in triumph, packed up and headed home. I felt good. Comment from deleted. There was a bar fight. Huge guy. Out of prison that morning. Racist. Unpleasant and very fucking drunk. He'd been in the pub all day. In walks a woman. Apparently they had beef. He grabs a glass and tries to smash it in her face. Misses and glasses some random woman. Now he's extra angry. Grabs his intended target by the throat, slams her into a chair, starts punching her in the face repeatedly. The staff called the police, but this guy is trying to kill the woman. So I get in there and break it up. He swings at me. She bites me. I'm now in the middle of 2 people trying to kill each other. Scary shit. Comment from gatorcreator. Sailed on the Andaman Sea to the coast of Myanmar in a huge thunderstorm. Bad call by the crew leaving the island we were on just before the storm hit us. We saw lightning strike around us a few times and were on a tiny wooden ship with absolutely no protection. The Burmese captain was trembling behind the wheel. I truly felt it could be over at any moment and was starting to make my peace with not making it back home. We drank many beers after making it through. Comment from 9,799,606,712. Sleep paralysis is the worst. Man. Never been more terrified in my life. Woke up very late at night once, and literally couldn't move anything except my eyes. At the bottom of the bed, where the window was, and the streetlight spilled in, there was a strange, black mass, in the shape of a person. I watched, absolutely terrified, as this shadow moved up the bed, around to the side where my ex-girlfriend was sleeping, and I couldn't do anything about it. It got really close to her face, and I could have sworn I saw it smile. Then, as if nothing had happened, I could move again, and the shadow was gone. I wouldn't wish sleep paralysis on anyone. Comment from Growlibi. I was a wee lad of 14 years old in the attic where our PC was located playing RuneScape and making homework. Later in the night, around 10 p.m. I heard some noises downstairs and saw a light turned on. I figured my parents had returned from visiting family. A man that looked a lot like my uncle started coming up the stairs slowly. But he wasn't my uncle. We made eye contact for a solid 5 seconds just in complete shock. He bolted back downstairs. I grabbed the nearest thing I could use as a weapon, which were some scissors I had near me. I was screwed basically. I can't remember how much time had passed, but I didn't have a mobile phone with me at the time. I was absolutely petrified this entire time. And then I saw my aunt log on to RuneScape. My aunt, dad and cousin all played as well at the time. I told her what happened. She called the cops, and within 10 minutes everyone was home. There were multiple knives left on the stairs and they got in through our garden. I had to describe the man I saw, and I was very bluntly racial profiling. My B to the cops. Definitely scariest moment of my life. I thought I was going to die right there and then. Comment from deleted. Comment from BadBitchFrizzle. Okay, so I'm at a house party in a rather shitty neighborhood. One guest, call him Kyle, is selling and smoking meth, along with his girlfriend Beth. Beth is around 6 months pregnant. Drinking, smoking, so we know that she makes great choices. But Beth decides to beat up a girl with a cast on her leg. Hair pulling, slapping, eventually leads to the girl in the cast punching Beth in her stomach. A cry for Kyle rings out. Kyle, however, is too busy trying to show his underdeveloped cock to a group of 16-year-olds at the party. Kyle departs in a meth-fueled haze, pants around his ankles. He grabs his gun, leaves the jeans behind and rushes to help. Kyle talks to Beth, and sets out to shoot the girl in the cast. She, however, had made her escape at this time. But Kyle still scoured the place looking for her, while Beth started to bleed fairly badly. Sirens rang out. This is unfortunately where my part ends. As being the wily 17-year-old that I was, I ran for it, barely escaping to my car, and making a very slow getaway, trying to be undetected. Pretty scary at the time, but the adrenaline made it seem fun. Comment from Stormfield. Just a couple weeks ago, my girlfriend and I were attacked by pirates. We were in Iquitos, Peru, where she was finishing some field work, public health. I wanted to see the Amazon River before we did our other tourist stuff, so we started out with a few more days there. On the second day, we found a local guide who had a boat, and for a pretty reasonable amount of money agreed to take just the two of us around Belen and across the river to explore the jungle a bit. Belen was the most abject poverty I've ever seen anywhere, even in the news, documentaries, etc. It's right on the river, but was during the dry season, so the water was low and trash was just piled up on the riverbank. Each house had an outhouse right in the river, which was basically just a hole in the dock and maybe a tarp or something for privacy. The whole area floods during the monsoons, so a lot of the houses are just tied to logs and stuff so they can float. All the building materials are pretty much scavenged. In any case, we had turned around after making our way into Belen for a bit. Again, we were on the river and were heading back to the main part of the Amazon. There were 4 of us in the boat. Our guide, his driver, my girlfriend and myself. All the boats out there are basically long canoes with improvised outboard motors made from generic single-stroke engines. They don't speed up or slow down or reverse. They're just either on or off. Our guide saw them coming first and leapt up shouting in Spanish, running for the back of the boat. I turned to see what was happening, and there were 3 teenagers in a smaller boat already right next to us. The guy in the front of the boat had a very old shotgun, and they were steering into our boat about to collide with us. I didn't have time to process what to do, but our guide had already decided he was not going to let these guys in our boat. He first tried to grab the gun and managed to break the barrel of the shotgun down it for a second. Then both him and the driver were struggling with another guy who tried to get in our boat. Our driver picked up a machete and the kid fell between the boats trying to avoid him. Our guide disarmed the one dude but cut his own hand, taking a kitchen knife away from him. The boat managed to push him down between the boats and he fell into the water. I was only standing between them and my girlfriend, but I'm not a guy who knows how to fight and wasn't about to risk my life for a camera and cell phone, which was all we really had with us. She got below the seat and I was just focused on blocking her with my body in case the gun went off. Both boats crashed into the shore. Since theirs was a lot smaller, this meant they were thrown out of it and it was submerged. The battle moved up onto the shore where there was some shouting in Spanish, which I don't speak very well. The pirates were pretty clearly rattled, but they still had a gun and were backing off. The one kid fired a warning shot and the other guy threw his machete at our guide but missed badly. In any case, somehow things diffused for a moment, and I got out to help push the boat back in the water. I learned later on that they'd been convinced somehow we didn't have any money and clearly weren't ready for anyone to write back. Once we were back on the water, we had a moment to take stock of things. There was blood all over the boat. Apparently our guide had just grabbed the dude's knife bare-handed and cut himself pretty bad between his thumb and index finger. Both my girlfriend and I were in the same state of mind, which was, I can't believe that just fucking happened. And what only made it weirder was how casual our guide was, both about the fact he just chased off pirates who had a gun with only a machete and that his hand was bleeding everywhere. He treated his wound with motor oil, explaining only that his dad grew up in the jungle and wanted to continue with the tour. We did stop to report it to the Coast Guard. But that's just what we did. Just went across the Amazon and explored the jungle for a while. We did give him a significant tip after getting back to the hotel. Besides this one adventure, Peru was an amazing place and we had a great time. TLDR. Pirates on the Amazon River. Our lunatic guide chased them off and got cut on the hand, but nothing else was stolen. Comment from icypops. When my now husband was hospitalized with pneumonia, he started off with just a normal bout of a cold. But suddenly it was a chest infection, at least that's what the doctor said, but he couldn't keep the antibiotics he gave him down, so within a day it had turned into pneumonia. He was hospitalized because his SATs were so low. I remember ringing my grandparents that night because all I wanted was to hear my granda's voice and breaking down on the phone to him because I was so scared. And then had to go back to putting on a brave face because my husband was so scared too. They tried him on a new antibiotic, which gave him muscle spasms as an allergic reaction, starting in his face, so I thought he was having a stroke. They continued to give him this antibiotic levofloxacin despite this, and he ended up having a seizure. I was rushed out of the room and I had to ring his mother to tell her. I thought he was going to die. It was without a doubt the scariest thing I've ever gone through. And it all happened about 12 days before we were meant to get married, so we also then had to postpone the wedding. Fun times. Comment from Jynku. When I was 10, I woke up around midnight to severe pain and crawling sounds in my left ear. I yelled for my father, but he wasn't around. He had gone out to a bar with a friend after I went to sleep. I spent a long time screaming in pain and trying to look into my ear on the mirror and pouring water into it. Turns out a cockroach had laid an egg in my ear and they were hatching that night. The empty egg came out about a week later. I had roach legs come out of my ear for years while cleaning it with Q-tips. Comment from deleted. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe.